Okay, now we're going to talk about solving a quadratic equation, and the method that we're going to teach here is the square root method, and we only use the square root method when the problem that we're dealing with does not have a middle term. So if it has a bx term, we're going to use a different method other than the square root method, but today we're going to work on those problems that do not have a linear term. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 is the standard form of a quadratic equation. A is the leading coefficient, or the coefficient of the quadratic term. B is the coefficient of the linear term. And when we don't have a b, when b equals 0, the linear term drops out, and now we can use the square root method. When we use the square root method, we're going to get the c to the other side, and then take the square, divide both sides by a, and take the square root of both sides. So here's our example. These are our three different possibilities, which are the same three possibilities anytime you're going to solve a quadratic. When you solve a quadratic, you're either going to get two solutions that are real, one solution that's real twice, or no real solutions. And of course, the no real solutions is when d is a negative number. So if we're asked to find x squared equals 16 and solve that, that means find all the answers that make the equation true. And I remember when I was a student, I used to get confused about the idea that, oh, when you take the square root, you only get a positive. Not true. When we take the square root of both sides here, we are going to introduce a positive and a negative in our answer. So the work that I would do on a homework problem would look something like this. I would get to this point, I would take the square root of the left side and the square root of the right side, and I would say x is equal to plus or minus 4. So anytime you take the square root of both sides, you get a plus or minus. Here's another one. When we solve this one, what's different is that 11 is not a perfect square. So we're going to come up with an answer that is not going to have integers in the solution. There aren't any factors of 11 other than 1 and 11. So the answer, plus or minus the square root of 11, is our solution. And again, if we have x squared equals negative 4, you can stop right here. This is a problem where there is no solution. And of course, there's no real solution because there are no real numbers that when multiplied together can make a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So you cannot solve this problem under the real numbers. When you guys get to Algebra 2, you guys can learn about what imaginary numbers are and how you can solve that. So this is the typical problem right here that you're going to see in your homework tonight. 120 minus 6x squared equals negative 30. And in this problem, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get the x squared by itself by subtracting 120 from both sides and dividing both sides by negative 6. At this point, we have x squared equals 25, and we should all be pretty happy about that because we can recognize 25 as a perfect square. And now when we take the square root of both sides, we're going to introduce that, again, that plus or minus. So we take the square root of the left side, take the square root of the right side, and our answer is going to be x is equal to plus or minus 5.